Zara's head throbbed as she slowly regained consciousness. Acrid smoke filled the air, mixing with the coppery scent of her own blood. She blinked, trying to focus her vision. The control panels of the supply ship were a sparking, shattered mess. A groan emanated from nearby, and she turned to see Kai, the ship's human engineer, slumped over in his seat. A large gash marred his forehead, crusted with drying blood. "Kai, are you all right?" Zara asked, unfastening her safety harness with shaky hands. Kai groaned again and opened his eyes. He looked around, dazed. What happened? "We crashed," Zara said, the events coming back to her. The ship's sudden lurch out of hyperspace, the blaring alarms, the desperate struggle with the controls as they plummeted towards the planet's surface. The ship malfunctioned. I couldn't stop it. Kai kindly touched his head wound and winced. He assessed the ruined control panels. "Comms are down. Engines unresponsive. We're not going anywhere in this ship." Zara stared out the cracked viewport at the desolate, alien landscape of muted blue vegetation beneath an eerie green-tinged sky. A shudder ran through her. This was no place to be stranded. Even if they survived the crash, the planet's atmosphere contained trace toxins that her species could tolerate, but would slowly poison Kai. And that assumed the planet's predators or other dangers didn't kill them first. Their prospects were beyond bleak. "How bad is it?" Kai asked quietly, seeing her expression. Zara met his eyes, seeing her own fear reflected back. "Bad. We have very limited time and supplies, and no way to call for help." Kai took a shaky breath. "Then we'd better get to work. We'll have to find a way to survive on our own." Zara nodded, trying to ignore the dread knotting her stomach. They were two souls, as different as could be, stranded on an alien world. Their only chance would be to somehow put aside their differences and work together. Otherwise, this hostile planet would surely claim them both, lost forever to the uncaring stars above. "This is all your fault," Kai shouted, banging a fist on the twisted bulkhead. "If you'd been paying attention, we never would have crashed." "My fault," Zara shot back, her own temper flaring. "I seem to recall you insisting on using that new hyperdrive system against my warnings. If you had listened." They glared at each other, the weight of their predicament fueling the argument. The last 2 days had been a tense struggle of assessing their meager supplies, making hesitant forays to gather resources, and futilely attempting to repair the ship. Progress had been almost non-existent and frustrations were boiling over. But some part of Zara knew that anger was largely born of fear, a primal terror at being stranded light years from any help. She forced herself to take a breath, unclenching her fists. "This isn't helping. Blaming each other changes nothing." Kai looked away. "You're right," he admitted grudgingly. I don't know what to do. I'm an engineer, not a survivalist. And I'm a pilot, not a doctor," Zara said. "But we have to find a way." She hesitated. "I noticed your rash is getting worse." Kai rubbed at the red, irritated skin on his forearms, a byproduct of the toxins slowly building in his system. "I'll manage. It's not like we have a choice, right?" "We always have a choice," Zara said. "And right now we can choose to work together. My people visited this world generations ago. I still remember some of the old stories. There may be a way to slow the poison." Interest sparked in Kay's bloodshot eyes. "And I might be able to rig the comms array to boost a distress signal if I can get the right parts from the ship." He met her gaze, a fragile understanding passing between them. "Then we have a plan," Zara said. "We pool our knowledge, we scavenge what we can, and we find a way to signal for help." Kai nodded slowly, agreed. "I suppose if we're going to survive this, we can't do it alone." It was a small moment, that first tentative lowering of guards, but Zara felt the significance of it. They were no longer just two castaways concerned solely with their own survival. They were a team, an unlikely alliance forged in the crucible of an alien world, united by the single goal of making it out of this together or not at all. The feline predator burst from the undergrowth in an explosion of iridescent fur and vicious fangs. Zara shouted a warning, but Kai was already moving, whipping the metal pipe around to connect with the beast's skull in a sickening crunch. It crumpled, but two more were right behind it, slitted eyes glowing with primal hunger. Forcing down her own fear, Zara grabbed a branch from their campfire, the flames hissing as she swung the makeshift torch at the predators. Fur singed, and they fell back with angry screeches, giving Kai an opening to stand protectively in front of Zara, blood dripping from a gash on his arm where a claw had found its mark. The creatures paced, seeking invulnerability, but suddenly froze as an eerie ululation echoed through the alien forest. They melted back into the shadows as swiftly as they had appeared. Kai slumped back against a tree, breathing hard. That was too close. "Let me see," Zara said, moving to examine his wound. The gash was deep and angry-looking. "We need to treat this. Those creatures carry a vicious bacteria." "With what?" Kai asked between gritted teeth as Zara carefully cleaned the injury with precious water. "It's not like we have a medkit handy." In response, Zara grabbed a broad purple leaf from a nearby plant and placed it over the wound. Clear sap oozed out, covering the gash. "This will help," she said. "I remember the stories now. The sap has antibacterial properties, and the roots can be made into a poultice to draw out toxins." Kai looked at her in surprise. "I thought your knowledge of this place was myths and legends. Didn't realize you were a survival expert." Zara wrapped the wound, hands gentle. "I'm not, but I'm learning." Her own heart still raced from the attack, a primal fear matched only by the steel of her determination. They would learn, adapt, find a way, because the alternative was unthinkable. Kai flexed his arm experimentally and then placed a hand over hers. A quiet moment of gratitude and solidarity. No more words were needed. They both understood now, with visceral clarity, what they were up against. This world would kill them in a heartbeat if they let it. But they wouldn't let it. In this, they were united, the engineer and the pilot, human and alien, survivors against the odds. They would fight with every scrap of ingenuity, every ounce of grit they possessed. Because giving up was not an option. Not now. Not ever. This planet would not claim them today. Zara twisted the final wire into place, hands shaking with exhaustion. 17 straight hours of painstaking, nerve-wracking work, scavenging every possible component from the wrecked ship to cobble together a ramshackle comms array capable of punching a signal through the planet's atmosphere. It was a product of desperation, a Hail Mary born of their last dwindling supplies, and the realization that no one was coming to save them. If they could not save themselves, they were doomed. Kai knelt beside her, his own face haggard as he triple-checked the connections. His hands had long since steadied, the focus of a problem to solve overriding the pain of his injuries and the ever-present specter of the toxins in his blood. I think it might work," he said, hardly daring to hope. "If I can just boost the signal." A deep boom of thunder interrupted him as the sky lit up with searing lightning. The alien storm they had watched brewing on the horizon was nearly upon them, the massive electrical discharges a deadly threat to their exposed position. "We have to go now," Zara said, grabbing their makeshift packs. "One more second," Kai said feverishly. "I've almost got it." The comms array crackled to life, the sound sweeter than any music. A green light blinked on, signaling that their desperate SOS was broadcasting out into the void. Kai slumped back, a sob of relief barely stifled. Zara hauled him up by his arm as the storm crashed over them, the shuddering concussions shaking the ground. They huddled in the small cave they had scouted earlier, shivering as the chill winds howled outside and the lightning strode through the cracks like the flash of an ancient god's anger. Zara found herself leaning into Kai for warmth, his presence a bulwark against the fury of the storm and the crushing uncertainty. "Do you think it will work?" she whispered, hating how small her voice sounded. "Will anyone hear us?" Kai was silent for a long moment. "I don't know," he said at last. "But I know we would have died here if we hadn't tried." He looked at her, something deep and unspoken in his eyes. "No matter what happens, I'm glad you're with me, Zara. We make a good team." Despite everything, Zara felt the ghost of a smile on her weary face. She leaned into Kai's shoulder, drawing strength from his human resilience, so strange and yet so inspiring to her. "That we do, Kai, that we do." Outside, the storm raged on, but in that small pocket of light and hope, it seemed a distant thing. They had done all they could. Survival was out of their hands now. All they could do was wait and hope. Together, days turned to weeks as Zara and Kai fell into a tense routine of survival. The initial adrenaline of the crash and their frenzied efforts to send a distress call had faded, replaced by a gnawing fear as the empty skies remained stubbornly void of rescue. They rationed their meager supplies with growing desperation, each measly meal a reminder of their dwindling time. Foraging for alien roots and plants could only sustain them for so long. Kai's condition worsened, his breathing labored and skin pale beneath the deepening rash from the toxins. Zara did what she could, but her medical knowledge was woefully insufficient. She could only watch helplessly as he weakened day by day. The planet itself seemed to sense their vulnerability, the attacks from predators increasing in frequency and boldness. Every day was a fight for survival, a never-ending battle against an uncaring, hostile world. Zara found herself talking to Kai more, sharing stories of her homeworld, her family, her hopes and dreams. Anything to distract from their dire reality. In turn, Kai spoke of Earth, painting pictures of rolling green hills, vast oceans, and bustling cities filled with the messy vibrancy of human life. It all seemed so far away, like a half-remembered myth. The universe beyond their prison of alien forest and unforgiving sky felt like an impossible dream. One grim day, as Kai shivered with fever and pain, he turned to Zara with a desperate, haunted look in his eyes. "We can't keep doing this," he said, voice raw. "We're running out of time. I'm running out of time." Zara gripped his hand, the fear she had been pushing down for so long threatening to swallow her. "What are you saying?" Maybe you should go on without me," Kai said. "Search for help, for a way out of here. I'm only slowing you down." "No," Zara said fiercely. "We stay together. I'm not leaving you." "But—" "No, Kai," Zara interrupted. "We're in this together, remember? We didn't come this far to give up on each other now." Kai closed his eyes, exhaustion and pain lining his face. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay. Together." Zara held his hand tightly, an anchor against the despair that threatened to drag them both down. She looked up at the alien sky, sending a silent, desperate plea to the uncaring stars. They had fought so hard, come so far. Surely the universe couldn't be so cruel as to abandon them now. Surely their distress call had reached someone, anyone. But the skies remained empty and Kai's breathing grew weaker. All Zara could do was hold on to him and their fragile, fading hope. And pray that they hadn't been forgotten by an indifferent galaxy after all. The roar of engines filled the sky, so alien and yet so achingly familiar, that for a moment, Zara thought she was hallucinating. But the gleaming shape descending through the clouds was no feathered dream. It was a ship, a beautiful human-made vessel that promised salvation. Kai, wake up." Zara shook Kai's shoulder, tears streaming down her face. "They found us. They heard our distress call." Kai stirred weakly, blinking up at the ship with uncomprehending eyes. "Am I dreaming?" he whispered. "No, it's real." Zara laughed, a sound of pure, incredulous joy. "We're going home." With strength she didn't know she possessed, Zara half-carried, half-dragged Kai out into the clearing as the ship landed with a hiss of hydraulics. The hatch opened and figures in sleek spacesuits emerged, running towards them. Zara wept openly as the rescuers reached them, babbling their story and Kai's urgent need for medical attention. She barely registered their reassurances as Kai was loaded onto a stretcher and whisked into the ship, the medics already working to stabilize him. One of the rescuers, a human woman with kind eyes, wrapped a blanket around Zara's shaking shoulders. "It's over," she said gently. "You're safe now. We've got you." Zara could only nod, overwhelmed. It was over. Against all odds, they had made it. The journey back to civilization passed in a blur of medical checks, debriefs, and the slow, aching process of readjusting to a reality not defined by the desperate fight for survival. Kai was rushed into surgery, the human doctors working tirelessly to purge the alien toxins from his system. Zara refused to leave his side, holding his hand as he slept and whispering encouragements. When he finally woke, his eyes clear and aware for the first time in weeks, Zara felt a joy and relief so intense it stole her breath. Kai smiled weakly, squeezing her hand. "We did, thanks to you." Zara shook her head. "Thanks to us. We kept each other alive out there." As the days passed and they began the long process of physical and psychological recovery, Zara and Kai found themselves at the center of a media storm. Their incredible story of survival against the odds captured the imagination of both their worlds. But for Zara, the true miracle was the bond she had forged with Kai. The human engineer who had started as a stranger, then become an ally, and finally, something much more profound, a partner, a confidant, a true friend. They had seen each other at their worst and most vulnerable, and in the crucible of that hostile planet had found a strength and resilience neither knew they possessed. That was a gift beyond price, a treasure to carry forward into whatever the future held. At the grand ceremony honoring their safe return, Zara stood hand in hand with Kai, facing the cheering crowds and flashing cameras. It was a moment of triumph, of validation that their suffering had not been in vain. But as Zara looked at Kai, she knew that the true victory was not in the accolades or the fame. It was in the unbreakable bond they had forged, a connection that could never be severed. They had started as two lost souls, stranded on an alien world, but they had emerged as something new, something stronger. They had found in each other the most precious gift of all, hope, resilience, and the knowledge that together they could face anything. As they stepped forward into the bright light of a new beginning, Zara knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would meet them as they had met every trial on that distant planet. Together, always together, for they were more than just survivors now. They were a team, a family, forged in the fire of adversity and tempered by an unbreakable will to live, to thrive, to reach for the stars no matter the odds. And that was a bond that not even the vastness of space could break, a love born in the heart of an alien world, destined to echo across the stars for all eternity.